Hello everyone. In our last tutorial, we have discussed about structured concurrency, how we can achieve it using async and await, which were introduced in Swift 5.5 and which can be written in iOS 15 and above. And what are the disadvantages or pitfalls of doing the asynchronous operations using the callbacks, where if we have multiple callbacks within each other, that means we need to call multiple asynchronous calls one after the other, then it will do some then it will create something called callback hell. We need to switch out the result, what is the output, what is the error, no try catch in the closure, no try catch usual error handling mechanism we can't achieve. We need to switch out the result and need to see error, and then we need to handle it accordingly, and it is very difficult to debug if it is something like this. It's very difficult to debug if, and this is not linear. And also memory management in closures, we need to make sure that we handle the memory efficiently by using weak and unknown if you are accessing anything outside of the scope of the closure. And explicitly we need to return the completion in all possible exits, otherwise there will be never ending loop. For example, in this condition here and if this is simple, but if there is a complex logic, complex conditions in each and every possible exit, we need to write the completion handler. If you miss, then it will be never ending loop. So we can solve all this by using async-await, which are introduced in Swift 5.5. So this is how this becomes very linear one after the other. This is actually doing a sequence of asynchronous operations, and we can make a function doing an asynchronous operation by adding a method attribute called asynchronous. That means this function is doing something called asynchronous operation. And there is a suspension point we can keep, which we call it as await. It means it is simply waiting for an asynchronous operation to get some waiting for the asynchronous operation to complete. Correct? For example, fetch user profile, we are waiting and we are getting the profile. Fetch user preferences, we get and we are waiting for the preferences. And also we discussed about async and let. So here instead of the, if we don't need these operations have to be executed in a sequential order, if they can be concurrently, and the result only we need it at later some point in the execution, then we can go for async let. That means this makes this fetch user profile, fetch user preferences can execute concurrently, and later we can write await and use these outputs. So async let we also discussed. This is all good, but imagine I want to refactor all my closures and completion handlers so that I can avoid all these pitfalls of closures, and I want to go with a structured concurrency. If there are only couple of completion handlers, it is very easy. But what if there are number of completion handlers in my project, and I want to convert, of course, async and await latest. So of course our projects, we want to use all the latest concepts so that we can cope up with all the latest technologies, and we can get the advantages and capabilities of those. So for this I've just taken a I'll just take a small example and explain which Apple gives us an option in the Xcode using which we can easily achieve it without we manually doing something. Xcode is having an options to refactor our completion handlers, and we can achieve this very simply. So just a second, I was doing something. So here, let's say I have a products repository structure where I have a static function which is fetches the products from the data from the server, which is currently having the completion handler using the enum. So let's see how we can adopt to async and await in our existing project. There are different approaches. The first one is, I'll make it very simple. So if this is the method, if you want this to be converted to async and await, then just select it, right click on it and refactor. And there are three different ways of converting our functions to async and await. So let's discuss about the first one. First, convert this function to async. So it simply converts this to async. That means if you feel like, okay, I just have only a couple of completion handlers and I'm pretty sure that I don't want to keep my existing code, I can directly go for async and await. I will validate perfectly, test it perfectly before releasing it. Then you can directly go ahead and convert it to async. I'll show it again. You select the function, right click, refactor, then convert function to async. This is very simple. This is the first approach. Next, second approach is select the function, refactor, add async alternative. This creates available attribute. That means it keeps your code so that progressively you can make sure. For example, if your logic is very complex, you don't want to go with async alternative until unless you properly validate it, test it, and you want to take some time progressively, module wise or screen wise. For example, getting products, only this particular module or this particular functionality you want to convert it into async and await first for this monthly release, and for coming releases you want to, for example, getting the favorites, getting other shopping cart items, you want to do it later, then you can go for this fetch async alternative, where or you can have this as available. So whenever you try to, here let me try to products repository dot fetch products, here you can use it, but it is not deprecated, so we need to write deprecated. Now it is saying okay, this is deprecated, so that all the rest of the developers in your development team will understand that okay, this got deprecated. I think of course we separate all we separate network layer from the rest of the application. So if you are a network guy, if your job is to work on the network layer, if you change something, you want to notify that to the developers, then you can do this, so that they'll start getting these warnings in their module, and they will understand that okay, fetch products is going to be deprecated. So there is another alternative available, which is duplicated, rename it to fetch products. So you go ahead and so this can be done. So let me show it again. Just so this is my closure. I refactor to add async alternative, but it doesn't come with deprecated. You can add deprecated or based on how you want to go progressively. This is the approach I would suggest, instead of changing everything at a time, and it's better to do a progressive refactor. So this is the second approach. Third approach is add async wrapper. It just adds the wrapper. That means actually the new async what we are calling is actually using our code, our closure only. That means you don't need to worry much. Why? Because your new async structure, of course your calls are going to be linear, but they are going to depend on your completion handlers only. So here it's a less risky compared to earlier making it deprecated or something else. Now you are actually using your fetch products until you refactor. So if I go here and if I fetch products, or I can make it deprecated. I'm not actually writing anything. I'll just start using this, but this is actually using my completion handler. So with this this is the final refactor method. It's an easiest conversion, since it will simply make use of our existing code only. But the newly added method uses something called with checked throwing condition. Why? Because this method throws, that's the reason we are adding with checked. So earlier if we see, this one, convert it again. Okay, rename it to fetch products. With checked throwing continuation, it is just nothing but since it is closure structure, this is await a suspension point, both are different. So this makes sure that this gets called and we get the result, and then only this we come out of the suspension point. That is the only difference. But in this method we are just using the existing code so that we can rely on our code which is already there. And since it throws with checked throwing continuation, if it doesn't, there is with if it doesn't, there is something called with checked continuation. This also we can use. Yeah, pretty much that's about how we can refactor our completion handlers to structured concurrency using async and await. But picking the right async await refactor method for your project is our call, depending on the size of our project and depending on the time we have and depending on the structure. So we can pick up what are the refactor option that we can go, but our end result is to have these async and awaits using which we can achieve the structured concurrence, and we can get rid of all these completion handlers and the callback hell. Yeah, that's all for this video. I hope this is useful. Thank you.